Get your copy of Fire. It's definitely a must-read. If you enjoy hood books, this one is it. Just like the title of the book, it's officially Fire. Get it on Amazon, paperback or Kindle.
Okay!
Always trust everyone to be themselves, but trust in the fact that you can see them well. I mean, so it's like, trust. It takes too much energy to not trust someone. I mean, it takes too much energy. You always gotta stay 2 steps ahead of them or whatever. Right. But trust them to be them.
Right. To be themselves.
Trust the snake to bite you. Right. Trust the lion to laugh. Trust the thief to steal from you. Like, trust them to be them. Too. But know them when you see them.
Peace. This is The Enemy's Public, and I am Bro.Nasir. This evening, we have Corrupt to the Core, the Day of Reckoning. This episode of Corrupt to the Core is going to deal with when the police break the law, when they don't serve and protect, and they victimize the citizens that they so-called sworn to protect. Now, that's the worst thing to be, is to call yourself a public servant and all you're out there doing is mistreating people and abusing your power as this public servant. And this evening, this is what we're going to deal with. We're going to show videos of police officers getting their just due, meaning being brought to justice for crimes against people who they sworn to protect. Some police patrol cars, they even have serve and protect written on the police cars. To serve and protect. And they do the very opposite. And what's crazy about it, they have this mentality that they are somehow victims because they go out and they form gangs, goon squads, and they're rank and file. And because people don't obey them, don't comply with mostly unlawful orders, they get very violent when you don't comply with them. But today, we're going to deal with police officers who get their day of reckoning because of their transgressions against the law or laws they swore to uphold. Share my screen, and we're going to get right into it. Now, we're going to go to an ex-Pearl officer accused of bullying arrestee into licking urine off the floor. Now he belongs in prison. Belong in prison.
A former Pearl police officer appeared in federal court this afternoon, pleading guilty to a Class A misdemeanor.
According to the DOJ's court filings, the former patrol.
Why is that a misdemeanor? Why is, as a police officer, you force a arrestee, a detainee into doing something such something egregious as and nasty as licking urine off the floor? That should be a felony because those are bodily fluids and it's disgusting. It's a misdemeanor.
Patrolman forced an arrestee to drink urine off the floor of a jail cell. 26-year-old Michael Christian Green, formerly known as Michael Christian.
He looks like a nasty bastard. Behold this ugly, nasty bastard who would do such a thing.
Bradshaw is charged with deprivation of civil rights under color of law. His sentencing is set for May 24th. He faces up to a year in prison. His bond was set at $10,000.
That is a slap on the wrist. The crime do not fit the punishment. That's a slap on the wrist.
Behavior, in my opinion, me being a former law enforcement officer, is just despicable. I mean, this is how I think about human beings. God created us in his image, and to treat somebody like that, to me, is just despicable. If you're going to be a police officer, you got to do things right, and you got to operate within the Constitution of the United States. And I feel very strongly about that. And I apologize to the family of this gentleman that was exposed to just the type of negligent and horrible type treatment from an officer of the law.
The judge has ordered that Green surrender his law enforcement certificate in the state of Mississippi.
Now we're going to go to an NYPD officer busted with trying to sell a large amount of narcotics.
New York City police officer tonight accused of trying to sell large quantities of fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. The U.S. Attorney's Office says 11-year veteran Grace Rosa Baez and her housemate Cesar Martinez hid drugs inside various items like a Mentos container. A confidential source says the pair sold a sample of fentanyl and was forming the groundwork for a wholesale trafficking operation. Officer Baez was already on modified duty following accusations of misconduct 3 years ago.
We're going straight to the other video.
And we've got more breaking news in New Jersey. A police chief arrested for sexually assaulting women and using his rank to coerce members of the department into sex. And perhaps even more shocking, he isn't the only former chief facing charges tonight. Eyewitness News reporter Mike Marza is live in Manville with details on the allegations and disturbing allegations. Mike.
Absolutely disgusting. Misuse and abuse of power. This is the white shirt, the brass, the head of the rank and file conducted himself like this.
Sade, that's right. In fact, the Howell Township Police Chief, the newly retired Howell Township Police Chief, also facing accusations of misconduct. Howell Township and Manville separated by about 56 miles, but tonight they are connected with these allegations of a lot of misconduct. In a bombshell announcement, the Attorney General detailed two separate, disturbing cases involving two police chiefs.
If the allegations we are detailing today are proven, unfortunately, we see what the abuse of power and the abuse of public trust really looks like. and how far it can go.
Howell Township Police Chief Andrew Kudrick retired as the investigation closed in. The 49-year-old is accused of lying in the investigation and threatening a high-ranking police department member in an effort to conceal an affair with a subordinate.
Howell Township Police Chief Andrew Kudrick allegedly threatened to open.
How do you become the police chief at age 49? I wonder how long he was a chief at his age, at age 49.
An illegitimate internal affairs investigation into a police captain to intimidate him, his own colleague, from being truthful in interviews in an investigation by the township.
In Manville, current police chief 55-year-old Thomas Herbst is accused of sexually assaulting several women, groping and exposing himself to an employee who reported to him between 2008 and 2021. He
looks like a drunk. He looks like he turned up alcoholic beverage every day. He don't look stable, and he shouldn't even be a chief with this type of behavior. As a matter of fact, he shouldn't even be in the rank and file as a police officer with that type of behavior, because it had to be ongoing. If it's several women groping and exposing themselves to an employee and coercing staff members into sex acts, this is despicable. I'm not going to even say I'm becoming of an officer, because corruption in police departments is the order of the day.
Using his rank to coerce staff members into sexual acts at work and in the victims' homes.
Our investigation has also uncovered evidence that Herbst would solicit sexual favors from the wives of subordinate officers in order for those officers to receive favorable employment decisions and opportunities.
Herbst worked for the Manville Police Department since...
The wives of police officers? That means he's propositioning wives for promotions and commendations for police officers. He need more than a talking to, more than a reprimand, more than being indicted. Way more than that.
1991. He's facing a list of charges, including 2 counts of sexual assault. It is now placed on paid administrative leave.
The defendant allegedly ordered the victim at one point to wear skirts to
The city of Manville, borough, whatever it is, in Somerset County in New Jersey, is still paying this demon. After he did all that, they should stop paying him. The citizens of Manville should not be paying this man after he was indicted for this foolishness.
facilitate and escalate his assaults.
Herbst could face fines and prison time if convicted. He could also be forced to give up his pension and be banned from serving in public office for his life.
No shit. Now, the next video is about the police, the state police being sued over an expungement backlog.
The State Office of the Public Defender is also taking legal action today, filing a class action civil rights lawsuit against the New Jersey State Police over what it says are the police agency's extreme delays in processing tens of thousands of expunged criminal records for New Jersey residents. As senior correspondent Brenda Flanagan reports, justice advocates say the backlog means people are being prevented from applying for and getting new jobs or housing.
They lose out on good-paying jobs at casinos, foul out when volunteering to coach kids' sports, and get locked out of apartments for rent after old convictions pop up on their criminal background checks. Even though New Jersey courts officially expunged those offenses and gave them a clean slate, some 46,000 people are still waiting, sometimes for years, for the New Jersey State Police to update their records.
The state police hold the official criminal records of New Jersey. So that means that the FBI draws down their records from the state police.
This means that the police, when they pull someone over who has a criminal record or had one and had it expunged, that means they can further criminalize someone who paid their debt to society, is moving on with their life, probably more than likely going straight from that day forward. But the police want to constantly criminalize these people.
And all the private background check companies that landlords use and employers use are all getting their data from the New Jersey State Police.
I think the bottom line is the state police need to fix this. There aren't workarounds. The system is set up where kind of all roads lead to the state police, and that's why this lawsuit is so important.
The impact on people.
They're being lazy. Whoever the investigators are who handle this, they're being lazy. And they just don't want to do their job. This is a clerical thing that can just fix it. It's a clerical thing.
On people's lives forms the heart of this class action lawsuit filed in Mercer Superior Court by New Jersey's public defender. It represents 6 plaintiffs who share a common grievance that the New Jersey State Police's extreme delay in processing expungement orders deprives them of their right to resultant benefits. We've disguised this plaintiff at his request.
So it doesn't matter what I do. If I need fingerprinting, that's going to show up.
He's a military vet and a recovering alcoholic who now counsels addicts in Atlantic County. He wanted to coach his kids and get a job teaching, but his prior offenses show up on background checks, even though they were expunged almost 2 years ago.
The anxiety that I experience having to wait and like, are they going to know? Are they going to say something? Am I not going to get the job? Am I going to be judged?
People apply even just for jobs at Home Depot and they get denied the job because the state police don't clear their criminal records. So that's why we're fighting this case on behalf of all of them. Everybody who got an expungement is entitled to the benefit of being able to say that they don't have any convictions.
The lawsuit names Superintendent Colonel Patrick Callahan and argues his agency got a $15 million appropriation to update its admittedly obsolete data systems and hire staff to process documents within a reasonable time, according to a law signed by Governor Murphy in 2019.
I wonder what they used that $15 million for. If they didn't use that $15 million to do what it was appropriated for, this is called a misappropriation of funds, and somebody needs to go to jail for that.
Meredith Shalek directs the Expungement Law Project at Rutgers.
Over 4 years later, the fact that the system and the backlog is worse than it was when they were given the $15 million is completely unacceptable.
The state police never sent up a flare to say we're.
Oh yeah, somebody's going to jail for this. Some heads going to roll for this. Callahan and down, because they were given $15 million and 4 years later, nothing changed.
Having a problem here?
They've never responded to me ever. And they have completely ignored requests and emails and letters to try to find out what's going on.
She's referred reams of data to Jersey's state comptroller for investigation. The lawsuit's request looks simple on its face.
What they're asking is to mandate that the state police follow the law. People are waiting years after the court has said you are entitled to this relief. Hey, state police, clear it from their records.
The state police did not respond to our request for a comment. I'm Brenda Flanagan, NJ Spotlight News.
Now we're going to go to New Jersey police could lose licenses over social media posts. Yeah, they'd be on social media doing all kinds of racial epithets.
In order to serve in law enforcement in New Jersey, you'll now have to hold a valid active license issued by the state's Police Training Commission. The new requirement went into effect last month, adding New Jersey to a list of more than 40 other states with the same mandate. Some 40,000 police officers here have to comply to keep their jobs. Advocates say it was designed to build public trust and confidence in law enforcement. But as Ted Goldberg reports, one requirement involving officers' social media accounts is still up for debate.
Anyone who wants to become a police officer in New Jersey could face a unique hurdle: the things they post on social media.
If you're putting out biased content onto your social media platforms, that can impact your ability to serve the residents of this state, and you can be held accountable.
Exactly.
The Police Training Commission gives out licenses for police, and if proposed rules are accepted, licenses could be revoked for posting, sharing, or commenting on content that supports, quote, hatred or bias toward individuals or groups based on race, creed, color, national origin, ancestry, sex, marital status, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or any other protected characteristic where the conduct or behavior would undermine public confidence in the ability of the individual law enforcement officer. Attorney General Matt Platkin says this policy sets apart New Jersey's law enforcement officers from those in other states.
I am confident that this is the right thing to do to ensure that the public has confidence in our law enforcement. And I think this provision in particular is going to set us apart as setting a national standard.
We're very close to a place that we can live with, and we think that it protects the right amount.
The rules are in the middle of a 60-day public comment period that runs until mid-March. Kevin Lyons works for the state's PBA and serves on the Police Training Commission. He says the rules are a good compromise, considering earlier drafts required recruits to share data from banking apps and their Amazon accounts.
We want to protect people's private lives to some degree. If they're in a LGBTQ group chat, that's not something an employer needs to know. A group chat would have been considered social media. If there is a reason for access, go get a subpoena for it.
Lyons has concerns about how the rules will be interpreted, but he also thinks the rules will help the hiring process for police.
Nobody's saying that if an officer has a swastika on their front page of their Facebook page, let's say, that officer shouldn't be scrutinized. We don't want those officers.
It's important to make sure that the officers we're hiring to police us all, right, a diverse society, don't inhabit these types of biases.
Jason Williams is an associate professor of justice studies at Montclair.
I think agencies ought to check, right? It ought to become part of the background check.
He thinks the rules will help departments identify problematic people before they get hired and become a bigger headache for their superiors.
I think it's better that they weed these officers out from the outset, right? Rather than allowing them to come on into the agency and then now you have this problem snowballing and then you only deal with it once something materializes.
Some people have argued this violates freedom of speech. Lyons mentioned courts who have ruled that while people have a First Amendment right to speak their mind, that doesn't mean they're free from...
No, that's a bunch of foolishness. If this person is a police officer employed by a city, municipality, state municipality, a federal municipality, they are held to a higher standard. Now, citizens, on the other hand, is one thing, but this person is being trusted as a police officer, and he shouldn't or she shouldn't have any biases. I know it exists. Most case scenario, I know it exists, but police officers shouldn't be able to say what they want to say. No, they shouldn't, because for one, they're supposed to be held in higher, higher standard in regard.
From consequences, and the First Amendment doesn't guarantee you the right to be a police officer.
Law enforcement officers have a restricted First Amendment right, and we realize that when we take the job. We don't love it, we're still human beings, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the public's trust is assured.
Attorney General Platkin says New Jersey's licensing bill is the strongest in the country. We'll see if the social media policy is altered when the public comment period ends next month. For NJ Spotlight News, I'm Ted Goldberg.
Now we're going to go to a drunk Bordentown police officer laying on the ground, drunk out his mind.
Hmm. 716 dispatch.
This is the police chief.
Going to be New Jersey registration. Red pickup. Should come back to Silverado.
Exactly, Sharon Walker, exactly.
keys in the middle of the road, cell phone in the middle of the road.
No. Did you? Hi, what is your face? How old are you? How old are you? How old are you? Like 5. Perfect. One dispatch. You start EMS for a 35-year-old male with a head laceration. There in the back. Right. Just a little spill.
What the fuck is that? Pissed on his tire and then took a spill.
710. Are you out with? I got her on the phone now. She's highly uncooperative. 10-4, yes, we are.
You got a name?
What's the problem? You're sleeping in the middle of the road. Oh. Well,
Your pants are down.
Oh.
Are you diabetic?
Not at all.
Probably the wrong answer.
Wallet in the car? Oh.
This is who we have as police chiefs in towns and cities in the state of New Jersey. Pissy drunk, laying on the ground.
So, Brian, so what's happening now is right now you're going to be placed on arrest for suspicion of DUI. All right, you're going to go to the hospital, and we're going to do a blood draw. All right, there's been several calls, and another caller that saw you get out of the car and walk to the back. All right, so this officer is going to hop on the rig with you. You're going to go over to RWJ. I drove somewhere? I don't know. You didn't tell me that. I'm saying that there's been other callers that I've seen you driving, getting out of the car. Driving anywhere. Okay, who was driving? Okay, no one was driving. Okay. Just wait for him to come over and then.
Now we're going to go to Patterson, where the New Jersey Attorney General seizes control of
the New Jersey Attorney General is seizing control of the Patterson Police Department. It comes after a high-profile police shooting earlier this month.
CBS 2's Ellie Baum.
Do you know how corrupt you have to be if your police department is seized and the Attorney General take control over your police department? Police officers in Patterson have been found in their patrol car with the seat back, sleep. Ranked officers have been found sleeping on the job in Patterson.
Bauman explains what this means for the department and the community.
All I want is justice for my son.
Melissa Carter was there on March 3rd when Patterson police shot and killed her son, Najee Seabrooks. The anti-violence activist had called 911 for himself while experiencing a mental health crisis.
They came in.
That's why you never call the police, especially when it's dealing with someone who has mental illnesses. Now, this is an anti-violent advocate, and the police came and shot him and did the most horrific, violent thing you can do to a person. And not only that, they had it out for him because he was out there protesting and advocating for the people of Patterson, New Jersey. So they had it out for him anyway.
Combat gear, riot gear, and somebody having a crisis, if that's the first thing that they're seeing, they're automatically, because in my mind, I'm thinking they're coming to kill me.
On Monday, New Jersey's Attorney General made the stunning announcement.
I've seen police show up to a potential suicide threat. Someone's threatening to commit suicide and end up killing the person. Why would you respond if you're going to end up killing the person who's threatening to commit suicide? They called the wrong people. They should have called someone who cared.
That his office will take control of the Patterson Police Department effective immediately.
This is the state of New Jersey coming in to provide the support that this community needs, to provide the resources that this community needs, and to provide the leadership that this community needs. And we will not leave until we're done.
The Attorney General says he will revise the statewide use of force policy to include protocols for people who are barricaded. He also plans to bring the Arrive Together program here to Patterson. That initiative pairs mental health professionals with plainclothes officers to respond to certain mental health calls.
These are very positive and needed steps for the community in Patterson.
Advocates cautiously call the move an encouraging first step.
This acknowledgement is great, but now what does that mean around accountability for officers that were on the scene?
In a statement, Mayor Andre Saye vowed, "We will do everything we can to continue to improve our police department."
What we're going to press the Attorney General to do is not to invest more into training or other resources for the cops to make more like militarized, but to reimagine public safety.
I can't stand when the police ask for money or more money for training. They shouldn't be on the streets if they don't have enough proper training. That's what the academy is for. That's what the FTO, the field training officer, is for, to give the officer training, to allocate all this money to them so they could get more weapons, militarize themselves, buy robots and police dog robots and tanks and BDUs and M16s and AR-15s. What's the sense of having a military when the police are becoming the damn military?
State Police Major Fred Fife will lead the department in the interim until the NYPD Chief of Strategic Initiatives, Issa Abbasi, becomes
Peace, DJ ZPE. Peace to you. Thanks for joining me.
the new officer in charge in May. From Patterson, New Jersey, Ali Bauman, CBS 2 News.
Now we're going to go to Camden, how the police department was disbanded and rebuilt.
Drop the knife. You're watching what could very likely have ended as a deadly confrontation between a man wielding a knife and police. But these officers, trained only to use deadly force as a last resort, followed the man for 5 blocks, eventually de-escalating a tense situation and finally taking the man into custody. No one was hurt as a result. It's part of a new philosophy that came to the police department in Camden, New Jersey in 2013. With the highest homicide rate in the U.S., Camden had the label of the country's most dangerous city. A police force plagued with corruption, the decision was made to disband the entire police force, giving control over to the county to rebuild it. The county hired 411
Actual facts, DJ ZPE. Actual facts.
officers, up from 250. Now there are fewer squad cars. Officers patrol the streets on foot and strive to have positive interactions with residents.
The key for us is being in the community before crisis happens and meeting people on a human level.
The Camden Police Force put into place one of the most restrictive use of force policies in the country, with the idea that officers should think of themselves as guardians of the community, not warriors. Excessive force complaints against officers in Camden have dropped by 95% since 2014.
So that was something that was foremost in this transformation, that if city residents didn't feel like they could trust the police or that the police saw them as human, this would not work.
Last year, homicides were down by 42%, along with the overall crime rate. It's reflective of a nationwide downturn in crime, but supporters of reform say it's also thanks to a new way of policing.
Now, the mother searches for answers after her son, a veteran.
Tonight, advocacy groups have joined together with the grieving mother whose son, an army,
died inside a DeKalb County jail. I believe that's in Georgia.
Army veteran died while in the custody of the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office. So they held a news conference outside the DeKalb County Jail this afternoon.
And that's where we find 11 Alive's Tracy Amick Peer live. Tracy, what do they hope to gain from this tonight?
Well, Christian Collins' mom has been demanding answers on how her son died since Friday. This afternoon, she brought those questions to the jail where he died, hoping to finally get some answers.
I just want to know what happened to my son.
Jonah Milburn, along with the Justice for Veterans Group and Atlanta Alliance, held a news conference on Thursday outside the DeKalb County Jail, where her son, Christian Collins, had a medical emergency last week, according to the DeKalb Sheriff's Office. Collins, an Army veteran with PTSD and schizophrenia, had been in custody of the Sheriff's Office since February 4th for obstruction of law and simple battery against police. He died at the hospital 2 days after being found in his cell. Milburn told me yesterday that her son should have been at the VA hospital for medical care, not in a jail.
And there's no way that a veteran who has served our country.
There was a young brother, regardless, he could have had all his medals on him. Those wicked demons would not have seen him as a decorated Army veteran. There was a young brother. I've seen videos where police pull guns out on veterans in uniform. They don't respect the uniform of the military personnel. They pulled a brother over. He had his uniform on. He was a lieutenant and they drew down on him. All because they couldn't see he had a new car and they couldn't see his license plate. They ended up being fired, but the disrespect that they displayed to that brother. Now, this was a young brother right here. They treated him like he wasn't even a part of the rank and file.
Should die in a jail cell because he was in jail because of a mental health episode.
Milburn says before the medical emergency, the VA hospital agreed to take Collins in for treatment. The VA hospital has not confirmed or denied that, but she claims the sheriff's office never transported him from the DeKalb County Jail to the hospital. That is, until he collapsed.
Why couldn't he get that same ride to the VA when he was breathing, when he could get the help that he needed?
One of many questions Milburn hopes to get answers to from DeKalb County and the VA.
This family have not seen the sheriff. She has not even contacted the family, gave her condolences. We don't think that's right. Parents shouldn't have to come here and take their child back and bury him. That should not have to happen.
Now, DeKalb County tells me Collins' death is still under investigation, so they can't release any more information at this time. So I reached out to the VA, and they referred me actually back to DeKalb County. So it could take weeks before we know how Collins even died.
All right, Tracy, thank you so much.
Now we're going to go to Mississippi, where a goon squad was sentenced for beating, torturing, and shooting two brothers, all because they was living with a white woman who was their friend.
A fifth former sheriff's deputy in Mississippi has been sentenced for his part in torturing two black men last year. 53-year-old Brett McAlpin was sentenced to more than 27 years in federal prison. The final former officer, Joshua Hartfield, who worked for a different police department, is also being sentenced today. Last August, the men admitted to breaking into a home and using stun guns, a sex toy, and other objects to torture the men. So far, a federal judge has given sentences ranging from...
Can you imagine these nasty, disgusting, sexual deviant, wicked ass so-called cops tortured two brothers with a sex toy, stun guns, and other objects, all because they were hanging out with their friend who happens to be a white woman?
From 17 and a half to 40 years. For more, let's bring in New York Law School professor Kirk Burkhalter. He's also the director of the school's 21st Century Policing Project. Kirk, all 6 former deputies were at the scene. They played a part in torturing these 2 men. I was in the courtroom yesterday, and the level of emotion these men still feel and their relatives is immeasurable. Why do you see this varying degrees of sentencing when it comes to some getting 17.5 years and one man getting 40 years?
So the sentencing is varied by the degree of culpability, meaning what particular acts that one person committed. So the reason why they're all receiving heavy sentences is because they all worked in together in some form of conspiracy. However, who actually pulled the trigger, for instance, of the gun? Who actually used the object for the sexual abuse? And I think that varies in degree, and also who developed the concept of the cover-up and who was more active in that respect, as opposed to who was just present and kind of going along. They're all culpable. However, there are different degrees of culpability based on what they did.
And the legal team representing the victims, that being Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, they said they had a nickname for Christian Dedman, calling him Officer Dead Lee. He also conducted the sexual assaults. But what does this case show us? How much does it highlight just this larger issue within police departments of turning a blind eye to police brutality? When one of the men was speaking in the courtroom yesterday, he was in tears, saying that he hopes the sentence brings some sense of closure for the victims and that he should have stood up and he was a coward. But what's the reality?
Well, the first reality is that in cases like this, this is reminiscent to, for instance, the incident with George Floyd, the heinous murder of George Floyd. These actions, these activities were known to the police department. We often see that, these police officers are the group of, when they're acting a group, they have some type of nickname, such as Goon Squad. Other people within the department knew that this person or persons tend to be heavy-handed, tend to abuse their authority, tend to abuse force. So this is nothing new. It's not like in most cases where these police officers wake up in the morning and turn from this law-abiding citizen to this outrageously mean person. So that's the first thing that stands out. And then the second, of course, that leads to the second point of accountability. What do police departments do when they learn of an individual who operates outside the bounds of law? Do they do nothing, or do they take action? When police departments fail to take action, that tends to send a signal to other officers, let me keep my mouth shut, let me go along. Clearly, the department has no problem with this type of activity. So it has to start from the top. And then finally, it's absolutely fascinating that 6 police officers can operate outside the bounds of law, be unaccountable, no one knows where they are. They can commit all these heinous acts without anyone looking for them. So the police department there is broken, plain and simple.
What advice do you give people? Because people watch this with 2 sentiments. On one hand, they're relieved to see justice being done. On the other hand, to your point about leadership, Sheriff Brian Bailey is still in his post there in Rankin County. The victims and their legal reps are filing a lawsuit, hundreds of millions of dollars. They want him out of the post. But what advice would you give to communities who care about safety? And as you say, leadership starts at the top. So how should they approach the next few months and weeks?
Well, it certainly illustrates that we shouldn't have to, meaning the public, shouldn't have to wait until there is some heinous act committed in order to take some type of corrective action. The sheriff, I'm certain, has lost confidence of the civilian population there and should be removed, plain and simple. As far as recourse, I think the only recourse when you have a system that is broken would be
the sheriff is a elected position, so they should just impeach him and get him out of there, because his leadership is being reflected by what happened to those brothers from these demons.
Through the federal authorities, the Justice Department and the FBI and so forth, unfortunately. In a larger jurisdiction, I think it's easier to seek some type of recourse through state measures because you have so many different entities and they're staffed by so many different people. But the problem is in a small jurisdiction, prosecutors and the local law enforcement authorities tend to work together. So it's very difficult to seek relief unless one goes to the federal authorities. This is just illustrative really of how we need some type of national standard, some type of national metric, some way, as you put it, for the civilian population to seek recourse rather than waiting for something like this to happen, to occur. Because there have been complaints.
Every police department across the United States should have a civilian review board. That means it's civilians that has power. If they see a cop who's not cutting it as a cop, he's abusive, he just don't cut it as a cop to be paid with our money. A civilian review board should be able to get together and say, okay, this cop is not making it. He's abusing the people, he's abusing his power, he got this many complaints on him, and he or she is not making it. So we're going to vote him or her out as a cop. All police departments, all cities that have a police department should have civilian review board, and they should be reviewed yearly. But if they have too many complaints on them, they get reviewed quarterly and get rid of the asses.
Complaints here in this police department between the sheriff's treatment of the African-American community there.
And none of this would have come to light if the victims didn't speak out, if Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, despite the humiliation and the embarrassment and the pain, if they didn't open up and share what happened, justice would not have been done. Kirk Burkhalter, thanks for joining us today on this topic. We appreciate it.
Now we're going to go to—
You're quite welcome.
We're going to go to Malik Zulu Shabazz, who served as the attorney for these brothers down in Mississippi, dealing with the goon squad who victimized them. This is the press conference, and you will hear from the victims of the goon squad.
Joshua Hartfield, Daniel Updike, and Brett McAlpin. These are serious federal charges that these defendants have pled guilty to. I don't know if you have them, but I have the information that they have pled guilty to. And it is sad and tragic information, of which serious criminal penalties and consequences should be levied tomorrow. Hunter Elwood is facing a total for this crime of at least 70 years. He's facing at least 70 years for a variety of civil rights criminal violations. He faces up to 70 years for his shooting of Michael Jenkins and his criminal civil rights violations. And he also has pled guilty to a similar act against other victims in Rankin County. So tomorrow will be a great test of this justice system, because it will send a sign tomorrow of what will be happening with the rest of the 6 defendants. And the nation is watching, police officers are watching, the victims are watching, the families are watching, and they want justice. Yes. What do you all want? Justice. And when do you want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. And when do we want it? Now. Okay, so before I turn it over here, I just want to say, for example, Hunter Elwood is facing up to 70 years for violating United States Code criminal statutes, deprivation of rights, conspiracy against civil rights, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and of course his charges in the discharging of a firearm and others in the course of committing his felony we expect stiff sentences for Hunter Elwood tomorrow. I have to be honest. Some of these other sentences that you're hearing around the country. Well, an officer got 3 years. He got 2 years. Another officer over here got probation. One got 6 years, but he'll serve 2 years. We don't want to hear, we're not expecting to hear any of that tomorrow. We are expecting here sentences that are commensurate with the nature of the criminal activity that occurred.
That's right.
The nature of the criminal activity.
Exactly. The penalty must fit the crime. The severity of the penalty must fit the severity of the crime.
Activity occurs, righteously classifies what occurred on January 24th of last year as the worst set of circumstances of police brutality that has existed in this state or the country in memory. This is the worst set of circumstances, the worst set of crimes that the deputies and police officers have committed anywhere, and we are advocating to the judge to send sentences to the goon squad defendants that reflect the severity of their notorious crimes. We want the sentences to match the crimes because the nation is watching, the world is watching, and this information is sick. Some of this information includes, which our clients are not exactly happy to have repeated here, but for the purposes of sentencing, it will have to be repeated here. Not only has Hunter Elwood shot Michael Jenkins in the mouth at the end of this 2-hour torture session. You all know all the details. I won't rehash all the details of the torture and the beatings and the waterboarding and I got the tasings and the beatings and the waterboarding and the illegal entry and breaking into their homes and beating them. But for example, in here, Hunter Elwood, Opdyke, count 6 in specific, just show you how sick this is. Count 6 of the criminal information that these defendants have pled guilty to includes Deputy Christian Dedman and Deputy Opdyke assaulting both Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, assaulting them in the face with a sexual device, a dildo. That is just one of the counts that 3 of the defendants are charged with. Assaulting them with a dildo and Elwood watching it. That in and of itself, that's years to me. That in itself is 10 years. Okay, because if a law enforcement officer, if a law enforcement officer is out here operating with his methods of law enforcement and using sexual devices and dildo, a strong message must be sent to that officer, must be sent to the nation that this type of outrageous activity and our outrageous incidents will not be tolerated. Okay, and so here we are standing on the verge of history. You're here today for no lightweight reason. You're here today because never in the history of the United States of America and in this state have you had 6 police officers plead guilty and be headed to court for sentencing at the same time. That has never happened in the United States of America. That's never happened. Never in the history of Mississippi has a white law enforcement officer ever been ever been held criminally accountable for harming a black person ever. And a lot of harm has occurred decade after decade in this state. So I must thank, before tomorrow, I want to thank the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division under the leadership of this African-American woman named Miss Kristen Clark. I hope Miss Kristen Clark is listening. I spoke to her, we spoke to her last week. And we must thank Miss Kristen Clark, and we must thank the Southern District staff of the United States Attorney's Office for vigorously standing up for justice in this state of Mississippi and for obtaining these pleas. And now we are expecting vigorous arguments by the prosecution tomorrow, vigorous arguments for aggressive sentencing by the government tomorrow. And so that's my opening. We're here for justice. We've gotten some justice. We expect more justice. Eddie and Michael have been through a lot, and we'll move. I'm going to move the program here. But I must say that all of this, every criminal act, every act of lawlessness that has occurred, it belongs to the responsibility ultimately of Sheriff Brian Bailey in Rankin County. Who? Who is that? Who is that? I hear Mr. Kareem Muhammad from the local organizing committee of Mississippi, who's manned all of the demonstrations on the front line. Brother Muhammad, honor you, Brother Kareem Muhammad. Okay, so ultimately, the responsibility for these acts of lawlessness, which the Mississippi Today and other reporters has come out all over the country, that this goon squad has been operating without supervision, without checks and balances, without being properly monitored and supervised by Sheriff Brian Bailey in Rankin County. So
this is what happened. They get these police officers, they get these teams that they put together, and they just become marauders. The same as the Negroes down there in Memphis who ended up murdering a brother. That's what they do. They put these teams together, these what you call them, they're like these task forces. But this was actually a goon squad. And what happened was someone called them and said 2 black guys was living with a white woman. They went around, they cased the area out, and seeing that there was no surveillance cameras, so they just went in and kicked the doors in. That woman didn't call them cops. Somebody else called them cops, or they seen those men going in and out their house, and they took it upon themselves to go in there and torture those men, all because they was associated with that woman.
So I'm praying that Rankin County is paying close attention to what is happening, because the world is watching, and they want to know, do you get the message, Rankin County? And do you get the message, Brian Bailey? And do you accept responsibility for the lives that you have allowed to be tortured, and others have gone to their grave like Damian Cameron, who we also represent? And the world wants to know, does Rankin County and the Mississippi and their support of their sheriff, Brian Bailey, are they as in the same mindset of doing justice? The world wants to know. I'll let you hear from the Honorable Trent Walker here now as we move forward.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I will do my best not to be long or repetitive, but the point that we want to get across today is that that the day of justice has come, the week of justice has come, and it has been a very busy last year, We've accomplished some things. I don't believe that ever have you had a case go from January 24th when the crimes occurred to people pleading without ever having been indicted in August. So the Department of Justice has certainly moved with diligence and with lightning speed. We do appreciate that. But what we want to keep on everybody's mind is that Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, who does not like the limelight, but these two men are the reason that we are here. And what would be justice for them is for Judge Tom Lee, who I know and respect and have always found to be a fair judge, but for Judge Tom Lee to sentence these 6 members of the Goon Squad, and these, in my opinion, are just the 6 that were available to come terrorize that night.
That's right.
But for those 6 members of the Goon Squad to receive the maximum sentences, and if at all possible, we would like for those sentences to run consecutively so that it can be a word to others in law enforcement that you treat people with respect and you treat people with service. Almost every police car in America has the words to protect and serve. But you can't.
And they don't do any of that. They protect and they serve each other.
Protect one segment of the community and then persecute another segment of the community. If you're going to protect and serve, then everybody deserves the same protection and the same service. You know, if 2 men are minding their business in a private residence, this is not Russia. And the Rankin County Goon Squad is not the Gestapo. You don't have the right to rush into somebody's private residence where they are minding their business, committing no crime, and terrorize and brutalize and commit acts of deviancy because you don't like the fact that they're in the neighborhood. And we want this sentence tomorrow to reflect what is expected, because police brutality is still occurring. We all know what came to light this past week. Also in Rankin County, just with a different department, we know what came to light in terms of the way that that particular officer handled somebody that was in his custody. So acts of brutality are continuing to occur. And we are here because we want the justice system to understand that what we expect is not one system of justice for lay people who are apprehended by the police and taken into custody, and another justice system when the officers themselves are the criminals. We want the officers treated with the same air of criminality that they would have if they never put a badge on. And with that, I will yield the floor. But I do thank you all for coming.
Let's give Mr. Attorney Trent Walker a hand. Trent Walker a hand. Let's look into the information. Then I want you to hear from Michael and Eddie and a few others. And we take your questions. Let's look at the information here. The racial taunting. This is the information that the defendants pled to. Page 5. The defendants grabbed Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, who were still handcuffed, and brought them in the living room. The defendants, all of whom are white, called MJ and EP, Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, racial slurs, including nigger, monkey, and boy, and accused them of taking advantage of a white woman who owned the house and warned them to stay out of Rankin County and go back to Jackson or their side of the Pearl River, their area with higher concentrations of black residents. This is not Jenkins and Parker talking. This is what they admitted to and pled to. And so Hunter Elwood is, if these sentences for these crimes pled to are given out consecutively, meaning one after another, Hunter Elwood will receive 70 years for what he has done to Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. Christian Dedman, who is another ringleader here, he's a ringleader. He's facing 70 years in jail if he receives the maximum sentence, and he has signed papers acknowledging that he recognizes that he could receive the maximum sentence. All of the other defendants could receive up to 60 years. Now, the rules for the state of Mississippi and the criminal system do not allow us to see the sentencing back and forth between the defendants and the prosecution and their efforts. So we're still waiting as well tomorrow to see exactly what will happen in court. But our understanding is from Attorney Trent Walker and other criminal practitioners in this state is that the United States Attorney's Office in this state often and seek very close to the maximum penalty for the crimes. And so we're advocating for expecting consecutive sentences and real time. Okay, and so we want you to hear. You'll hear from him today briefly. These gentlemen have been through a lot of trauma. I want you to understand this. Michael and Eddie, they've been through a lot of trauma. They did not ask to be on the front page of newspapers and under this kind of stress and spotlight. They were just minding their own business. And they're having as any of us would, issues being constantly under the spotlight at all times. So I would like you to bear with them. Eddie will be testifying this week. I don't think Michael will have much to say this week in court, but he will be there front and center. But this is traumatizing for these gentlemen.
Yes, it is.
But I want you to hear from Brother Eddie, Mr. Eddie Parker. Or whatever he can say.
I don't know. It's been a long time, been a trying year, man. I don't know. It's a lot of stuff I can say. I got 19 microphones right here in front of me. I got a lot I can say, man. A lot I can't say, but I mean, everything moving, a whole lot quicker, but a whole lot smoother than we thought. I mean, I appreciate the justice system, man. I appreciate all the higher ups that that gave an ear, to what I was saying, what we were saying, what we went through. I mean, it was it's been a harder year, just as much as it was, harder going through that, situation. I don't think it was longer, but I mean, time seemed to slow down and they have sped back up. So it's good that everything moving, the way it is, and I'm just hoping everything that comes out of it as being the right thing, because everything needs to be done right, because everything was done wrong. We just want right out of this. That's right. Want right. And I mean, what's done already, man, can't be erased, man. Can't be taken back. I relive this every day. I relive this. Every time I turn on the TV, every time I get on my phone, I'm on social media. I mean, I'm seeing it. Everybody telling my story. Everybody telling.
Caucasian deviant, sexual deviant ass police officers always have to sexually humiliate a brother when they encounter them. The same thing happened in the 90s with Abner Louima. And that cop got life in prison where, he took the stick of a plunger and put it into a brother's rectum. Something about these Caucasian men are just totally damn deviant. They're sexual deviants. Now, what would make you want to do anything sexually to a damn man? It's just wicked. It's wicked. And these cops who did this to these brothers deserve life in prison.
I tell my story. It's been a roller coaster, man. I'm still riding. So, I mean, either I like theme parks or, I just like riding roller coasters. But it's something I got to ride. That's something I got to do. I appreciate y'all for being out here with us, man, taking care of, all that get, put out over the world, man. I mean, over the world, y'all trust and know, man, hey, we still living, man. We appreciate that, man. Appreciate the love, man. Y'all keep on fighting for us, man. We're gonna keep fighting for y'all. Real talk. We don't know y'all. We're gonna fight for y'all. Bro.
Okay, again, Brother Michael's he's been through a lot. He's not gonna say a lot. I think he may have a word here. And I'm sensitive to him at this time. This is a lot for him. He's not used to all of this. But go ahead, Mr. Michael Jenkins.
I'd like to thank everybody for supporting us and believing in us. And it's been very hard for me, for us, this past year. Just looking forward to justice, Ma. Hope they do right.
That's right. That's right. They're gonna get it.
Hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
Thank you.
Come on, Mike.
Let's get this English. Bring this English back. Yeah. Okay, I want you to hear from Michael's mom, Miss Mary.
Yeah, that's right.
Because if you want to understand what kind of, and she'll be testifying this week also at the sentencing hearings. If you want to understand what kind of stress and trauma that this can put on a family, then I want you to hear it from Michael's mother. And also, I must say that we are in the middle of the civil suit in federal court for Michael and Eddie. We can talk about that if you'll ask about it. And we're in the middle of that and fighting that, and we can update you on that. But what I want you to do now is, well, let me bring Michael's mom, then Miss English. Just hold Miss English, we're gonna get you in. I want you to bring let's give her a strongest round of applause. That's right. For standing up under all of this, day and night, the Honorable Miss Mary Jenkins, mother of Michael Jenkins.
Well, I'm glad you all
Speak
are
right
here
in the
today.
mic, ma'am.
I don't really have much to say. When I first found out that my son was shot and that he was shot in the mouth, I was almost certain that he was dead. I called Rankin County, and at first they wouldn't let me speak with anyone. They said they were in a meeting. And when I finally spoke with someone, I asked him if my son was alive. And he said, as far as I know. I said, when can I see him? He said, when we let you see him. This is a crying mother on the phone trying to inquire about her son. He said, Michael is our property.
They don't
That's
care.
what that deputy told me on the
Property.
phone. My son shot in the mouth, and he's telling me that Michael is their property.
Wicked damn demons. These people are wicked. I'm going to skip that and go to the sentencing of one of the goon squad officers. He was given a hefty sentence.
Well, Troy, as of today, 4 of the 6 involved in those torture crimes have been sentenced, including Updike, the person who turned over the text messages from the Goon Squad group chat, along with Dedman, who was identified in court today as the ringleader. 4th former Rankin County deputy who pleaded guilty to torturing Eddie Parker and Michael Jenkins was sentenced to 40 years in prison Wednesday as accounts of the horrific brutality of Goon Squad deputies afflicted the federal courtroom.
Let this be a strict warning to all rogue police officers in the United States of America that you will not get light sentences, that you will not be let off easy.
U.S. District Court Judge Tom Lee imposed the harshest sentence so far on ex-deputy Christian Dedman, saying he committed the most shocking, brutal, and cruel acts imaginable. Details of the nightmare beatings, torture, and sexual assaults back in January of 2023 unfolded for a second day as the victims came face to face with their abusers. For the first time this week, Eddie Parker spoke before the judge, giving his impact statement at Dedman's hearing.
Christian Dedman, who Eddie described as the...
And that's exactly what he should be once he entered the walls of that prison. His last name, Dedman.
Devil. And to see the devil get his due on this day, we just have to say all glory to God.
Despite his relatively young age, Dedmon, while on stand, claimed that he was only able to rise to this position because he participated in this behavior, saying it was encouraged by management.
The only way that Mr. Dedmon was promoted, the only way that he was able to become an investigator at the age of 28 and have authority over other people was because he bought into the culture of violence.
Dedmon was also sentenced in the same proceeding of a crime related to a separate incident in December of 2022. Updike, the third former deputy, received a 17-year prison term Wednesday. At his sentencing, Updike's attorney pointed to Dedmon as the, quote, guy who had this demented sexual perversion. Two other deputies, Elward and Middleton, learned their fates on Tuesday. Elward, who shot Jenkins in the mouth, was sentenced to 20 years. Middleton was sentenced to 17 and a half.
I've lived in Mississippi 68 years, and I've never seen justice like this.
Melvin Jenkins, the father of one victim.
Why was he sentenced to only 20 years when he shot the man in the mouth for nothing? He should be given that hefty sentence of like 40 to 70 years like the other man was.
Thanked Judge Lee, saying that the sentence was unheard of in the state. The final two defendants, Hartfield and McAlpin, are set to be sentenced Thursday. In addition to their federal charges, the 6 defendants also face state charges for which they await sentencing.
They should face federal hate crime charges also, just like that McMichaels did with Ahmaud Arbery. They should face charges just like that. As cops, they should face federal hate crime charges, all 6 of them.
Now, we have reached out to Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey following those statements that were made about management today in court. He says that he plans to release a statement sometime tomorrow. Live in Jackson, Madeline Nolan, 16 WAPT News.
Now we're going to go to a drunk Florida cop arrested while on duty. Yes, they drink a lot and they behave like...
Did you do anything to celebrate today, man?
No, sir.
No? Listen, man.
It's
better to be honest. In our profession,
I took a lot of Benadryl.
Listen, in our profession, you know it's best to be honest, right?
No, I know. Okay, I know.
This is the go-to thing that the cops do when they get busted, that they have an allergy and they took a whole lot of Benadryl. And he said, in opposition, you know it's best to be honest. And this dude said no. In their position, they know it's not best to be honest because you see it. They're never honest. They try to jam people up. And when they do jam people up and get jammed up themselves, they start lying and cops-plaining.
I took the Benadryls.
There is a open container of alcohol in your vehicle. Have you been drinking at all today?
No, that's maybe 3 days old.
Okay. I smell the alcohol coming from your breath.
Well, there's a Apopka police officer. His name is Oscar Mayorga, and he was arrested for drunk driving while on duty, I think, maybe, because his story kind of didn't add up. In full uniform, driving a patrol car, swerving, running stop signs. He was actually reported by a citizen. But let's look at how his drunk ass found himself back in the backseat of another department's police vehicle. Let's watch how this whole thing started, this interaction.
So can you just put your hand...
Mind you, he's on duty. In full uniform, driving like that in a patrol car. Boy, the privilege is real.
Hands on the roof for me. I'm going to remove your gun, okay? You got any other weapons?
No, but I'm
He's a cop being pulled over by another cop in full uniform.
You're from the seizures?
Okay, I'll turn my lights off real quick for you, all right? Here, let's just lean against my car real quick, all right? All right, right here. It may get a little hot, it's on the car. It's all good. I'll make sure you don't fall. It's all good. I'll make sure you don't fall. All right?
There's that beer can that they did discover in the middle console of this police car, the one that was apparently 3 days old. Now, I wasn't drinking today, officer. I was drinking 3 days ago. It's a bad defense. Some more details from this, because he's 25 years old. And again, he's from the Apopka Police Department. And he was pulled over for driving erratically in his official vehicle by a member of the Eustis Police Department, who were the other guys that were there. So a local resident is the one who called 911 after spotting the police car running stop signs and careening across the road. Here's an image of Oscar Mayorga in his mugshot with the Eustis Police Department after he was arrested. And he initially...
Yeah, he looked tore down like he had quite a few. Not one single beer can do that to somebody's face.
Claimed to have been to not have been drinking, as you guys heard there a little bit, and he said he took pain medication for seizures, but also he said Benadryl for his, I guess, allergies. He told the officers that he drank three. Eventually, he did say this. He said he drank three tall cans of Modelo beer. That's according to the affidavit. And then he rejected performing standard field sobriety tests and was taken to the Eustis Police Department to conduct certified breath tests, is what the affidavit also said. Now, if you think about any time anybody's been pulled over and you remember the amount that's supposed to be in your system to be legally driving, his blood alcohol level registered at 0.391, which is nearly 5 times the legal limit. I think he had more than 3 tall cans of Modelo. I mean, maybe he did. Finally, let's look at how they finally slapped the cuffs on him, because he went through not wanting to do sobriety tests, went to a paramedic come in to check him out. And after they checked him out, the other officer said, okay, this is over. Let's watch.
Hey, can you stand up for me, mommy? All right, just come up towards me. Turn around. Turn around. I'm going to pat you down for...
You already explained everything to him?
Sir, I already know what 1015 means. I am really just begging you. I don't want to go to jail.
Listen. Well, hey, we're going to detain you, and we're going to figure it out, okay? Go ahead and don't get her.
No. Call my sergeant.
He's on his way.
He's on his way. We got you, man.
He's 25 years old, Jessica. He's been with the department since he was 19. Wonder how many other times this happened, but he just wasn't busted.
Yeah, I can see the signs. It says HOV parentheses 2.
When Brandy Batone was driving down Central Expressway, she came across a sheriff's checkpoint targeting drivers breaking the rules.
He starts peeking around. He's like, is it just you? And I said, no, there's 2 of us. And he's like, well, where's the other person? And I went, right here.
Batone is 34 weeks pregnant, but the officer told her that doesn't count.
And I said, well, not trying to throw a political mix here, but with everything going on, this counts as a baby. And he kind of just waved me off.
Batone got a $275 ticket.
That's right. A quick-thinking pregnant woman in Texas is now bringing a very interesting legal issue before the courts. If her baby inside her is that fetus is considered a person, can we collect child support for unborn children? Can we drive in the HOV lane? Can we call them a dependent on our taxes? Because this would seem to follow in line with, someone actually being a person, even though they are just a fetus. And so there was a legal expert that weighed in.
We checked. The state's penal code recognizes a fetus as a person. It appears there is no language in the state transportation code that recognizes a fetus as a person. So what do you think will happen here?
So this is a really interesting legal question. And Brandy, kudos to you for your quick and creative.
I don't know what that came from. I don't know why they didn't cut that part out the video. That just came on after they dealt with the intoxicated cop. Well, this is going to conclude this episode of Corrupt to the Core, the Day of Reckoning. I hope that my brothers and sisters enjoyed seeing the cops get their day of reckoning, get what they asked for when they was violating people's rights and abusing people while abusing their perceived authority. Because the police think they have authority over you when you're not in their custody. When you're not under arrest, the police don't have any authority over you. You don't even have to talk to them if you're not under arrest. But they get very violent when you disobey their unlawful request, orders, or whatever you call it. But I'm going to keep bringing Corrupt to the Core because it's going to be a long time before the police departments, if ever, that they're not corrupt to the core. This is your brother Nasir. This is the Enemy's Public. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section. Peace.
Whether you like it or you don't like it, you love it, you hate it, one thing for damn sure, you are gonna respect it.
Get your copy of Fire. It's definitely a must-read. If you enjoy hood books, this one is it. Just like the title of the book, it's officially Fire. Get it on Amazon, paperback or Kindle.